turn today to the book of Isaiah, the prophecy of Isaiah, the one who spoke during the time of Israel, the time when they were about to go into bondage by the Babylonians. And then he also wrote, at least the prophecy itself was written after the time that Isaiah, after the people of Israel had gone into captivity of the Babylonians. Isaiah spends a good bit of his book talking and to warn the people about not only their own actions, but also their alliances with others and how they are aligning themselves with the wrong people, particularly the wrong nations, and the nations that are going to turn on them and cause them havoc, eventually, as the Babylonians did, would capture them and take them into captivity. Today we're looking at a passage of scripture during the earlier part of the prophecy of Isaiah, looking at chapter number 21. And it's in the midst of several different oracles or warnings that Isaiah shares with various groups of people. He talks today to the group that is referred to as Duma, which are the Edomites, those who were a part of Israel, but not necessarily those who were in collaboration with all the other aspects of the people of Israel. And so we have here where Isaiah is warning them and telling them some things and causing this dialogue to happen that talks about some things that are that they need to be concerned about as it pertains to their own lives and livelihood. Now, I have a confession that even as we'll read and share this particular passage of scripture today, that the title of the sermon today, which I shall share in a moment, was one that my father actually preached some time ago, obviously some time ago, since he's been dead for many years, but he preached and is also listed in a book of sermons that someone had written. The title as well as the text itself both are from that particular sermon. But the spirit of this message today is of my own. I was listening earlier to the Sunday school class, and Dr. Kimbrough mentioned the fact that she loves reading her Bible. She's mentioned that all through her life she's loved reading her Bible, and there are passages of scripture that she'll read over and over again, and each time she reads it, she gets something new from that particular passage of scripture. And thus it's the same with this title and this message on today. They're perhaps giving a different kind of light on the word that is there. I want to read again for our hearing from Isaiah, the 21st chapter, verses 11 and 12. A prophecy against Edom. An oracle concerning Duma. Someone calls to me from Seir, watchman, what is left of the night? Watchman, what is left of the night? The watchman replies, morning is coming, but also the night. If you would ask, then ask, and come back yet again. I want to use this borrowed tag for this message today, inquiry into the night. Inquiry into the night. The summer months, and particularly during this part of the summer, brings to us the longest time during the year that we have daylight. As a matter of fact, June the 22nd is considered the longest day of the year because there is more daylight on that day and during these weeks here than any other time during the course of the year. Yes, it is the time when it is daylight, but in so many aspects and so many parts of our lives today, particularly this particular year, that we discover that it is night. The night has fallen. Though the days may be long and the sun may be out, in many ways we still see that it is and feel as if it is night. There are so many things that are happening in the world around us, so many things that we're called upon to face and to deal with and to grapple with, from the coronavirus toward the things that have caused the protests to happen in this city and other places around this nation, even around the world, we've discovered that it is night. And so when Isaiah wrote these words of prophecy to those who were the people of Edom, he was also writing at a time when it was night for them as well. It was night because of the fact that there were enemies who would oftentimes come up against them and try to approach them in unsuspecting kinds of ways in order to capture them or to rob them or to cause them havoc to be in their lives. It was night for the people of Israel because, not just simply because it may have been physically dark outside, but it was dark in terms of their own history, in terms of their relationships with those who were their neighboring tribes, as well as it was dark in their relationship with God. As a matter of fact, if you read through Isaiah, you'll discover that Isaiah was concerned that God was concerned, as spoke through Isaiah, about the fact that the people were just disobedient, that they were not listening, they were not having a full regard for what it is God would have them to know and to do and to be. And so all of this was facing the people. All this was happening. It was a dark period in their lives and in their existence. And yet when we come to this particular passage, we hear the words of an unknown inquirer asking the question of perhaps the prophet, perhaps the watchman, we're not completely sure. My suspicion is the prophet himself, the prophet Isaiah. Watchman, watchman, what is left of the night? Watchman, what is left of the night? There is this query because of all the things that were happening in their situation, the great uncertainty about what was going on. They had to ask the question, what is left of the night? You see, night is a time when there is great uncertainty about the life and about living. Night is a time when there are fears, when there are concerns as to what's happening and what's going on. Night is a time that seems to be most perilous for us. We're concerned about night. We do things during the day because we don't want to be out at night. And we don't know what might be lurking out there. We don't know what evil might be out there. Night seems to be the time that we try to avoid as much as possible. But not only in terms of the physical darkness of night do we have concerns about. We also have concerns about other times which are night experience for us. Times when we don't know what to expect or what to go on or what's going on. That is night for us. It's night for us when, as Dr. Martin mentioned, that we have several members of our congregation who either have passed away or their loved ones have passed away. And it's a nighttime experience when loved ones are no longer able to be with us and to walk with us. It's night when we have depression and confusion within our own lives. It's night when our families are in disarray. It's night when we're not able to get out and do the things that we normally would do. It's night when we're not sure what our money situation is going to be, what our job prospects might be. There are a lot of things that are indicative of night for us. And so we can understand the query of this person in this ancient day, some 2,800 years ago, who asked the question, watchman, what is left of the night? It's a question that we can ask even today for ourselves as to what is left of the night. What is it that we should look for and anticipate? What is it that we can anticipate about tomorrow? We have come through 6 months of this year. We've come halfway through this calendar year of 2020, and yet it has brought us more peril, more things that we've ever thought would happen, could even imagine. Who would have thought that we would have been as paralyzed as a nation as we should be? Heeding warning after warning of what we should do as it pertains to this virus that has struck this world. Hearing again the voices of those who are sick and tired as well because of the injustices and the cruelties that have happened, not just at the hands of police, but also at the hands of political authorities and other systems that are out there. And so we have to ask the question, even for ourselves, watchmen, what is left of the night? What is left? What should we anticipate? How should we go forward? How should we proceed? What should be our mindset as we face whatever our tomorrows might be? I know that as people of faith, we talk about the fact and we sing about the fact that we have a God who holds tomorrow. And even as that is a part of the lyrics of the song, and that's sometimes even a part of the verbiage that we offer, we must also be honest with ourselves to suggest that there are times when we question about tomorrow. We don't always have the confidence and the assurance as to what our tomorrows are going to bring. We're not always confident and assured as to what to expect and what we should do. We're not even sure about our tomorrows when we hear about things that happen in the lives of people that can snuff their lives away so quickly. Watchmen, watchmen, what is left of the night? This was an inquiry that came to that which was the prophet of old. Perhaps it is a question that we ought to ask ourselves today as well. It is our inquiry into the night. What is it then that we can learn from this passage of Scripture that can help us in our own inquiry into the nights of our own lives and our own experiences? First place, we must understand that the inquiry is seeking to find certainty in uncertain times. The inquiry is trying to find whatever can bring us certainty in our uncertain times. When the choir came to the prophet, came to the watchman at that particular time, they were asking the question because of the uncertainty of their situation. They knew that the Assyrian army was beating down upon them. They knew that the Babylonians was encamping against them. They knew that all these things were happening around them, and there was disarray and discord even within the community itself. There was disarray, discord among those who were also connected with them ethnically and a part of their cultural heritage. And yet with all of that, they still asked the question, watchman, what is left of the night? What is it that can help us to find certainty in these uncertain times? These are the questions that we're asking ourselves right now. We've been in quarantine. There are others who should have been in quarantine, and because of the fact they have not been in quarantine, the fact that they've caused the uptick in terms of this virus that is going on, whereas here even in the city of Nashville, in fact, we've had to go back in terms of our phases to do some things differently because of the fact that we have not heeded the warnings of the night. We've not heeded the fact that it was really night. We kind of thought that it was light and daytime out there, but yet because of that, we're finding the rise of the numbers of persons who are being affected by this virus. We find that there's uncertainty in terms of what's going to happen in terms of people of color as they deal with some of the issues that are going on. Yes, there is the issue of police brutality. Yes, it is the issues of politics playing the games that they normally play, even here in the state of Tennessee. But it's more than that. It's more than just these things. It's about health care. How it is that the president is talking about trying to roll back the health care for those persons while we are in the midst of this pandemic. All the things that are happening around us, all the things that are happening in the world that are causing us to have uncertainty about our present as well as about our future. We have great uncertainty. And even in the midst of all these uncertainties, we have to ask the question, watchman, what is left of the night? In other words, how long are we going to have to deal with these uncertainties? How long are we going to have to deal with these forces that seem to be fighting against us? How long will we have to deal with all the issues that we're dealing with in this day and time? We ask the question, we make the inquiry because we're trying to find some measure of certainty in these uncertain times. We're trying to find some ground upon which we can stand that we can figure out how do we manage, how do we deal, how do we move ahead in terms of our own lives and living. We're trying to find certainty in these uncertain times. Yesterday, as I was sitting on my back porch, praying and contemplating, reflecting on this message for today, my daughter and my grandson's dog, Chanel, was out there also. So Chanel and I were sitting out there on the back porch, and it was getting later on toward the evening. And as Chanel and I were sitting out there, Chanel heard the fireworks that began to go off around our community. Yesterday was July the 4th, and people, as you know, customarily and illegally decide that they're going to shoot off fireworks. And when Chanel heard these fireworks going off, she began to get concerned. She began to move around in a circle and not sure exactly where she could go or what she could do because she was unfamiliar with what fireworks were all about. Maybe she's heard them before, but to hear the abundance of them that she heard on yesterday was of great concern for her. To the point where finally Chanel went and backed herself into a corner, tried to get as close to the house as she could in this particular corner, thinking, believing that she can shield herself away from the noise that she was hearing. I could have talked with her, I tried to talk with her to tell her that Chanel, don't worry about it. This is just fireworks. They're not going to bother you anything. But for some reason, there's a language barrier between Chanel the dog and Kelly the man. And we weren't able to communicate in a way that would help her to understand. She could not ask me what this was all about. I could not explain to her what was going on. So we were at an impasse in that regard. And so Chanel had to take matters into her own hands and backed herself into a corner to try to deal with, in her own mind, what she needed to deal with in terms of all this noise. You know, with all the noise that's going on in the world around us, we have to ask the question ourselves, what is left of the night, so that we don't back ourselves into the corner. We don't find ourselves pushing ourselves away, pushing ourselves into some situation that's thinking we're going to shield ourselves from what it is that's going on. We can't always protect ourselves from that. So we ask the question so we can know, so we can understand, so we can gain greater knowledge and insight. We may not be able to resolve the issue, but at least we know what's going on. At least we can hear and what's happening, what's going on. Watchmen, what is left of the night? We don't want to find ourselves backed into the corner, but we want to find out how we can get certainty in the midst of these uncertain times. Second thing I want us to keep in mind as we have this inquiry into the night, not only do we inquire because we want certainty in these uncertain times, but we also ask the inquiry seeking to grasp hope, seeking to find a way to get hold of and to hold on to that which is hope. The person who asked the question of the writer asked the question, watchman, what is left of the night? And they asked the question not simply because they're trying to find the certainty in uncertain times, but also because they're trying to see if even in the midst of all that's going on, is there reason to maintain hope? Is there some reason to even see a glimmer of hope even in the trying times that they were facing? Yes, the enemies were coming after them. Yes, there was discord and conflict within their own communities. But yet, in spite of all of that, is there reason to find hope? Is there a light that can shine even in the midst of their tunnel? Is there other ways in which they can find hope even when the situation around them looks hopeless? I know there are many of us even today trying to find hope in this day, trying to find something that can encourage us, something that can help us to know that we can hang in there. Yes, we've gone through a period of time that is different than perhaps any other time we've ever experienced in our life. And yes, there's so many questions that are not answered about life and about living and about conducting ourselves and how we need to do what we need to do as we go forward. Yes, all those are out there. But yet, even in the midst of all of that, we You can still ask the question, where is the hope? How can we have hope in the midst of all that is going on here? It reminded me of the words that are found in the second stanza of that familiar hymn that we call the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And how it is that they say the stony, the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, and felt in the days when hope unborn had died. But that's not the end of the song, that's not even the end of the verse. And I'm not even sure what kind of punctuation is there, but James Weldon Johnson wanted us to go on to say, but yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers have sighed. And even though in that time when James Weldon Johnson and his brother J. Roseman Johnson wrote this familiar song for us, that he wrote it at a time when things were not all well, where there was still Jim Crow laws, where there was still brutality against those who were people of color. Even though it was during a time when there were not advancements among those people, voting rights had not become a part of the law of the land for all people. There were a lot of things that were still going on, but he said, yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. He's suggesting that as we move forward, there is reason for us to maintain hope. There's reason for us to press on in spite of what the circumstances may be, what they may look like around us, in spite of all that we seem to experience. Press on. May look dark and ominous around us. May be as dark as 1,000 midnights, but even in the midst of all of that, still press on. That is where we're able to find hope. As a matter of fact, that is really what makes us Christian, is the fact that in the midst of dark and difficult times, that we find reason to maintain hope, find that there is still hope, there's still reason to hang in there, to believe that things are going to get better after a while. What Isaiah wrote when the question was asked, watchman, what is left of the night? He responds to them with a word that gives them hope. He says, the morning comes. But then he goes on to say, but the night shall come as well. He gives this ambiguous and even perhaps some confusing answer. Theologians have pondered for years as to what it is that he's talking about, that the morning comes, but also the night. But perhaps what the Lord is trying to help us to understand is that even as we face our nights, even as we face and work our way through our nights, we've got to keep our eye on the understanding that morning still comes, that the darkest time is just before dawn. Even as dark as it may be right now, we must understand that there is still light that is coming when the morning dawns upon us. The writer of Isaiah was trying to help us to know that we must understand that yes, the morning comes, and we do look for the morning. But even though the morning does come, we also know that a night will come as well. What he's trying to really suggest to us is the fact that you're going to get reprieve. You're going to get a moment where you can catch your breath. But also, it is to catch your breath to prepare you for the next night that is coming your way. That's what our faith does for us. It reminds us that I can catch my breath to work through the daytime. That would also help to facilitate whatever my nights may be. So that when I'm dealing with stuff at night, I can do it because my days have been productive. Because my faith has been reassured. My faith has been made strong. My faith has been able to be the way that it needs to be so that I can deal with whatever my nights might be. Nights can be long sometimes and can be difficult and hard for us to navigate, but I can handle my nights because of the fact I've got a God who helps me to work through the day. We must understand the value and importance of grasping on to hope. Yesterday, or day before yesterday actually, I was trying to set up And I did set up for us to have on our TV the Disney Channel, not because we're going back to an era that has gone by, but because of the fact that, you know, the musical Hamilton is on the Disney Channel. And so so I wanted to download, put the app on my television so we can watch it, and so we can make sure we're able to see Hamilton, which we hope to see later on today on our TV. It's a wonderful musical that deals with Alexander Hamilton, who was a black man, and if you have an opportunity, I hope you have a chance to see it. But when I downloaded the Disney Channel, I was kind of scrolling through to see what other movies and other things that were on there. I mean, I paid $6.99 for this month for my Disney Channel. I want to make sure I get all of my money's worth out of this $6.99. So I was looking through the other things that they were offering, and among them was the movie The Pirates of the Caribbean, which is an old movie which has a lot of strangeness in it with Johnny Depp. But I watched just a little bit of it, really not that much of it, but it was interesting in the little bit that I watched. There was one scene in there where Captain Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp's character, Johnny Depp plays as the character, here's a woman who falls into the water. And he jumps into the water to save her, and she had fallen all the way to the bottom of the sea. And he was able to grab her from the bottom of the sea and bring her up to the surface of the water. And they were able to come up to the water, and they were able to grasp a breath of air before he had to go back into the water to get a better hold on her to pull her ashore. And I use that as an illustration because of the fact that that's what the morning does for us. Mornings give us an opportunity to come to the surface, to get a breath of fresh air, to be able to handle and to manage and to navigate whatever else is ahead of us, so that we can deal with the nights that might be there. That's what our faith does. It is the morning of our life and our experience, even though it may be dark around us, even though circumstances may not be well, but our faith becomes that morning for us to remind us that all things are not bad, that God is still present. We just heard a little while ago the singing of the trio of Jan, Robin, and Jill, where they sung, God is still on the throne. Within your bosom, you have the phone. In other words, that even though it may be dark, even though it may be night, you grasp to the hope of the understanding that God is still on the throne. We must understand that when there's the inquiry into the night, not only does it help us to find certainty, to seek certainty in uncertain times, but also to grasp on to hope. One final thing I want to suggest to us as we look at this whole business of this inquiry into the night is not only do we seek to have find certainty in uncertain times and to grasp the hope, but also the inquiry is seeking to put faith in the right place. Putting faith in the right place. This inquirer had gone to the watchman and asked the watchman this question: Watchman, what is left of the night? You notice that the inquirer did not go to the baker and ask the baker what was left of the night. Did not go to the coppersmith. Did not go to any of the others that may be there, the artisans and the craftsmen that were there. But the asker went to the watchman, went to the one whose duty was to watch to see what's going on, the one who's able to discern what is good and what is bad, one who's able to discern whether or not it's a dog that is just caught up in the bush or if it's an enemy that is approaching. They were able to come and to go to the watchman and to inquire of this watchman. And let me just say this, that even as that we may see literally and understand that it was appropriate for this person to go and ask the watchman who was watching during the night watch, but I think it's more of a metaphor to help us understand the importance of asking the one who knows and understands about the night, but understands what may bring about the dawn. And so this person asked, Watchman, what is of the night? But they asked the watchman because they figured the watchman knew the answer. The watchman was on his duty. The watchman was doing what the watchman is supposed to do. This was his full-time occupation, to understand what is happening and what the scene and the circumstances were around him. He didn't ask someone who was just walking down the street and having just a casual conversation. He wanted to know from the one who had the facts right. You know, that's what we have to listen to today. There's so much information that is out there that's floating about this and about that, about what is right and what is wrong, what we should do and what we should not do. But the reality of it is that this is a whole lot of folk making a whole lot of noise. They really don't know all that they're talking about. I get frustrated by many of the posts and emails and other kind of things I get from various people that says, do this, do that, do the other. And when in reality, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just passing on something that somebody else passed them, and that it is even passing on bad information. We have to be careful that we learn who to trust in, whose voice we need to listen to, whose voice we need to receive and to understand. Dwight Lewis, who was over the house the other day, he just mentioned in passing the fact that Pat Robertson, who works for the 700 Club and one who identifies himself as being a Christian and seems to be the voice for many who are part of the far right in their own Christian perspective. But Pat Robertson said that those who are part of the Black Lives Matter movement are the same as those who are part of Charles Manson's family. You remember Charles Manson. Charles Manson was a murderer. He was a psychopath. Charles Manson was a cult leader. Charles Manson was crazy. I mean, certifiably so. One that caused others to come and to follow him to the point where they killed people, killed 9 different people simply because of the derangement in his own mind. And to compare those who were part of the Black Lives Matter movement, those persons who are fighting against the injustices, fighting against the things that are causing our people to not feel the freedom that July 4th is supposed to cause us to feel. Those people are standing for right. Those people are willing to have a voice in the midst of all of these things, not afraid to speak truth to power. These voices, he says, are no more than like Charles Manson. We have to be careful who we listen to. We have to be careful who we trust. Even though they may brand the name of being Christian, even though they may have the decorum and the platform that says that they're Christian, you have to be careful who you listen to. Because just because they call themselves Christians don't mean they understand the message of Jesus Christ. If you want to know who you can trust and who you can call on, maybe you need to call the one who understands night, understands how to handle the darkness, how to handle whatever the situations may be. You may recall that it was Jesus who on the night that he was betrayed, that he took bread and took wine and shared it with those who were with him, because even in the midst of the nighttime, that he wanted to remind them of the importance of community. And even when they left there, they went out into the night. But as they were going out into the night, they sang a hymn to remind them that even though they're dealing with the fact that he was going to be betrayed, that they were going to remind themselves that they were so glad that troubles don't last always. It was that night that when Jesus found himself being taken from one courtroom to another courtroom, and how it was Peter, who was one of his followers, warmed his hands with those who were fighting against Jesus and denied who Jesus was. And yet it was that night that Jesus handled the situation. It was a night, even though it was in the middle of the day, when Jesus was crucified on a cross at Calvary, because the Bible tells us that it's on that day and at that time that the sun refused to shine. It was a night experience, though the sun, though it was during the middle of the day, that Jesus died on that old rugged cross, because he knows how to handle the nights. He was buried in a borrowed tomb. And there he was that Friday night and Saturday all day. Sometime early that Sunday morning, they discovered that the grave was empty, that Jesus was no longer there. Because he wants us to know that even though we have to face the nights of our experiences, that the nights are not the final answers, but that the morning comes. And when the morning comes, you'll be able to find there in the morning the one who is the bright and morning star. I've got to trust the one who knows how to handle the darkness, who knows how to handle the night, knows how to handle whatever it is that comes our way. He is the one who is not the God of the night, but the one who is the light of the world. Early this morning when I got up, the sun had not risen just yet, but I was still able to see the light because I saw the light of Jesus speaking peace to me, reminding me over and over again, even though there's nighttime around us in the world, that he is still the light of the world. Thank God that he is our light that shines in the midst of darkness. Inquiring into the night. We inquire because we're trying to find something that is certain in these uncertain times. We inquire because of our desire to know why we press on. So we grasp for the hope that is there. And we inquire because it is our desire to make sure that we listen to the voice of the one who will make a difference in our world. Not to those who are superficial, not those who don't get it, not those who do not understand what it means to experience the night, but trusting in the one who understands what nighttime experiences are like, and yet still reminds us of the fact that he is the light of the world.